A lot of people spend decades chasing a number they believe will finally make them feel safe. For some, that number is $1 million. It sounds powerful. It sounds complete. Like crossing a finish line where suddenly money stops being something you worry about. But life rarely works that way. Because the surprising truth is this. For many retirees, $1 million is more than they actually need. And in some cases, people retire comfortably with far less while still living peacefully. My name is John, and this is John Explains Finance. I spend a lot of time thinking about how money really works in real life. Not the headlines, not the marketing numbers, but the actual experience people have after they stop working. And today, I want to talk about something that might challenge the idea of the magic million. For decades, retirement planning has been built around one symbolic milestone: $1 million. It's clean, it's simple, and it makes a great headline. But retirement is not built on headlines. It is built on spending needs and income layers. When you look at real data, the story becomes more nuanced. The median net worth for people between 65 and 74 years old is roughly $400,000. The average is much higher, close to $1.8 million, but averages are distorted by a small group of extremely wealthy households. Most retirees are living somewhere below that average level. And interestingly, many are still living comfortably, because retirement income rarely comes from a single source. Social Security plays a major role for many households. The average Social Security benefit is around $2,000 per month per person. For a married couple, that can mean about $4,000 per month, roughly $48,000 per year, guaranteed and adjusted for inflation over time. Now let's look at spending. The typical retiree spends around $50,000 to $60,000 per year depending on age and lifestyle. But there is an important trend that people often miss. Spending usually declines with age. Younger retirees between 65 and 74 may spend slightly more. Older retirees often spend less. Travel slows down, dining out becomes less frequent, entertainment spending naturally decreases. Life tends to become simpler, and that simplicity is reflected in expenses. Let's make this practical. Imagine a retired couple receiving Social Security income of about $48,000 per year. If their annual spending is around $61,000, the difference is roughly $13,000. If they withdraw 5% from their investments each year to cover that gap, they would need about $250,000 invested. Not $1 million, not even $500,000, just enough to cover the difference between income and lifestyle. Now consider a single retiree. Housing, utilities, insurance, and taxes do not disappear just because someone is living alone. So even if Social Security provides around $24,000 per year, total expenses might still be close to $60,000. The gap becomes about $37,000. At a 5% withdrawal rate, that person would need roughly $730,000 invested, still below the $1 million benchmark. And then there is a more comfortable lifestyle example. Suppose a couple wants to spend $75,000 per year. Maybe they want occasional travel. Maybe they want to help their children or grandchildren. Maybe they simply want a little more freedom in daily life. If Social Security covers $48,000, the remaining gap is about $27,000. At a 5% withdrawal rate, that requires around $540,000 in investments. The pattern is consistent. Many reasonable retirement lifestyles do not require a $1 million portfolio. The bigger idea here is not about proving that you should save less. It is about asking a better question. Instead of asking, "Do I have $1 million?" ask, "Do I know my number?" And more importantly, does that number support the life I actually want to live? Something interesting appears when you talk to people who are already retired. Many people approaching retirement worry that their spending will stay the same or even increase. But retirees who are already living that phase often report something different. Their desire to spend naturally declines, not because they're forced to cut back, but because priorities shift over time. Interests change, energy levels change, daily life becomes simpler. Research across multiple studies shows this pattern consistently. Retirees tend to spend less on travel, dining, and entertainment as they age. Healthcare costs may increase, but many other categories decrease enough to offset it. There is also something called the consumption gap. This explains why many retirees actually finish retirement with more wealth than they started. The consumption gap is the difference between what people could spend and what they actually choose to spend. Several psychological forces drive this. Habit is one. If someone spent decades focusing on saving, switching to spending can feel uncomfortable. Saving becomes part of identity. Loss aversion is another. Seeing portfolio balances decline, even when the math is safe, can feel emotionally painful. Uncertainty is the third. Longevity risk, market volatility, inflation. These fears often lead to conservative withdrawal behavior.
Long-term financial simulations around the traditional 4% withdrawal guideline show something surprising. Retirees withdrawing about 4% annually were often more likely to end retirement with more wealth than they started than to run out of money. Historically, diversified portfolios have tended to grow more than the amount withdrawn under that rule. And many retirees spend even less than that. A large number withdraw closer to 2%. Sometimes this happens simply because they don't feel comfortable spending more, even when the math says they could.
This creates an interesting tension. The financial system is designed to support sustainable spending, but human psychology often pushes people toward preservation. From one perspective, ending retirement with more money sounds like a good problem. For heirs, it often is. But for the retiree themselves, it can mean opportunities were delayed too long. Experiences may be postponed until they are no longer physically or emotionally possible. The financial industry likes round numbers. They are easy to communicate. But real life is not built around round numbers. Many households between ages 55 and 64 have retirement savings closer to $200,000 than $1 million. Yet retirement still happens. Because retirement planning is layered. Social Security, pensions for some households, modest investment savings, home equity, occasional income sources. When combined, these layers often create sufficient stability.
There is also a statistic that sometimes sounds alarming. About a quarter of retirees rely on Social Security for 90% or more of their income. But this number needs context. It includes households with little savings. It also includes households with very high Social Security benefits. Imagine two high-earning spouses each receiving $3,000 per month. That is $6,000 per month, $72,000 per year. If their lifestyle costs roughly that amount, they may never need to withdraw from investments. Their portfolio can remain untouched.
Social Security acts as a foundational defense layer. It arrives every month, regardless of market conditions. For some households, it covers most expenses. For others, it covers a large portion. Investments then function more like a backup safety system rather than a primary income engine. So the real risk is not failing to reach a symbolic milestone. The real risk is chasing a number that does not reflect your lifestyle, because doing so may lead to working longer than necessary or delaying experiences that matter to you.
Maybe you will need $1 million. Maybe you will need more. Maybe you will need less. What matters is understanding your expenses, your income sources, and the gap between them. That is your real retirement number, not someone else's headline.
Retirement success is not about winning a financial race.
It is about giving yourself permission to reach your goal, and then giving yourself permission to actually enjoy what you built. Because money was never meant to be the story, it was meant to support the life you choose to live.